wanted to talk about is my grief journey after the last 5 years. So if you go back to my channel a little bit, you'll see that I made a bunch of videos. I was, all over YouTube and, creating my channel and whatnot. Kind of just having fun with posting different types of things that I was interested at the time, and then I kind of just went meh. Disappeared for a while, if not like a couple of years. And I'm testing this out. Can you hear me? Or is my manual treadmill, too distracting? I don't know. We'll give it a second. Testing. So, maybe if I go like this, can you hear just me? This just looks kind of weird though. I don't really want to have to do this the whole time. Okay, so I don't think it's all that bad. I don't think you can hear my treadmill that much with my microphone. I think if I were just on my computer, I'd be able to hear my footsteps way more. So hopefully me kind of just like walking back and forth a little bit isn't too distracting. I'm just on my step game, trying to get my 10,000 steps a day. And one of the ways I'm doing that is walking on my manual treadmill here in my bedroom. Seems to be working pretty well. I'm already at 1,700 steps and it's 8 in the morning. I would like to get at least 5,000 by noon and then another 5,000 by the afternoon, by the time I go to bed at about 8 p.m. So T-minus 12 hours to get all these steps done. Shouldn't be that too much of a task. So anyways, I will need to be taking deep breaths every once in a while. But anyways, so what I'm really here to talk about, it's not my step count, but you really should get on your step count, get your steps in. But what I'm feeling passionate, or what's on my heart to kind of talk about today is, maybe I should relax my hand, you can't really see my face, is my now 5-year-long journey of the things that grief has taught me after losing my dad to homicide. And so what I want to talk about, it goes pretty deep into our own mental health and how we cope with things that happen to us in our life. Are we strong and resilient, or do we fall apart and let life dictate how we live? So if you're on a journey to find your own resilience and you need some uplifting, I hope that this helps. I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, not a doctor of any kind. This is just my experience. This is just human to human contact. This is just me stepping on my soapbox and making a community out of the things that really go on for ourselves. This is just me reaching globally to a community of people who have probably gone through similar things, if not more, So 5 years ago, August, not even sure of the exact day of his homicide accident, but sometime in August of between the week of the 11th, of the 11th to the 19th of 2018, My dad was in Utah at the time. I live in California. We've all lived in California pretty much my whole life, but my grandparents moved to Utah, bought a house there, have pretty much spent the rest of their retiring years there. I've been there. My family and I kind of have lived there for a little bit after our house fire. I know this house pretty well. Whew. And this year in particular, so my grandpa had already passed away. My grandma, or Grammy is what we all call her, was getting to the point of her age where she was developing Alzheimer's. She was forgetting who was who, and didn't really, and fast forward to my dad's funeral, she didn't even know whose funeral it was, who my dad was anymore. And so that's just kind of where she was at. So, and my dad also kind of just been experimenting with drugs and alcohol for many years at this point, and my uncle kind of just felt called to take my grandma from this house in Utah to stay with him so that she had better care instead of taking her to an old folks home. So that's what happened. So my dad had the whole house to himself. My dad has not lived with me and my family for many years at this point because of his addiction problem. My mom didn't want him around us. As much as we loved him and as much as we wanted him to be there, as much as he wanted to be with us, his addiction pulled us apart. So there he was, and there he was making good connections here, not so good connections there. He was a very friendly person. He would have, made friends with just about anybody. And in this particular day, he made friends with the wrong person, and that wrong person took his life. Long story short, I will spare you the gruesome details, but basically it was a homicide. And I feel like I'm able to kind of just be blunt about it, partially because I'm angry. That's a part of grief process, especially when it comes to, not dying of natural causes, not dying, a slow death where people can say goodbye to you while you're still alive type thing. No, one day he was here and the next day he was gone. So I'm angry. I have been. Probably always will have a little bit of a tinge, a little bit of some anger, but also with this occasion, I feel like I'm able to talk about what has happened now because I feel justified. I feel like I'm taking my power back by talking about what happened rather than shying away from it or feeling like a victim because of it. I know my dad would not want that. So so I don't quite feel like, oh poor me, oh my, whatever. I actually have some stronger thoughts and feelings on the matter, but that is quite besides the point. What things I have learned from this time, from this occasion, from this huge impact that this has had on my life, long-lasting impact, something I'd never thought would ever happen. I thought he might have lived a shorter life, in some other way, to be honest. But anyways, so what grief has taught me in general, and what's most relatable to people, is the empathy factor that this builds. I feel like my ability to empathize with people is so much deeper than it has ever been before. And although my dad was a deep empathizer with people, and so was my mom, I kind of feel like I have not been able to, and have tried not to in a lot of cases. I know in a naive way I've been able to empathize with people, but when it has come down to like really facing hard things, it's so much easier to just push it away and to treat people like their feelings are discardable, right? They're just easy to discard. And what grief has taught me is to sit with my own emotions, feel them, work through them, sit through other people's experience and emotions, and work through them. Don't run away from them. And that has been huge. That has been hard. There are times, this is what I had to personally distinguish between, is there are times where people's emotions and their experience are not helpful in my transformation. They're not helpful in their own experience. They're not helpful with making any change in their life or my life. It is simply there to be a vampire. And when I realize that that's what's going on, then I have to cut the conversation short and end it. And however, then there's the times where that person, like a friend, a family member, sharing their experience, sharing their perspective on anything related to the grief or anything related to our community living together, it feels important, it feels family oriented to pay attention to their experience and to take that into consideration. And so being able to differentiate the two is also something that I've learned that's kind of just under the umbrella of empathizing other people's experience, being able to better empathize with them. So another thing I learned is how darn important community is. Whew. So I know I've been a part of communities. I have been religious. That's like a huge part of a religious community. A part of religions are the communities that come with them, right? Like that's foundational for most religions. And so, of course, I've been in communities, but finding my own community, like grief groups, after something as traumatic as a homicide experience has been life-changing. So if you're experiencing grief and you don't know where to go, there are plenty of options. I know Kaiser is a huge help. I have to breathe. Kaiser is a huge help. They provide free grief group counseling. There's a mediator who is there who mediates the whole meeting, and then there's just a group of people who show up, talk what's on their hearts, they cry, they blow a bunch of snot out their nose, they're just bawling. I personally, when I was going there to the physical buildings before all this COVID stuff happened, I was going every week to as many different locations as I could go to, and I'm telling you, when I say I bawled my eyes out the whole time, ugly cry, I was quiet. I mean, I wasn't like distracting per se, but I would just sit in my chair, and from the moment the mediator started to speak to the moment the meeting was over, I was bawling my eyes out for weeks. Like, the pain of knowing that my dad was gone forever was heart-wrenching. And I can still recall those nights, those evenings of going to those meetings and just sitting with that pain and not knowing any of these people was strange, but it was still the fact that I had objective people around me supporting me. That was huge. They didn't have to talk to me. They didn't have to do anything but just say hi in the very beginning and say bye afterwards. You know, like, it was just wholesome the way they held those groups, the way that we could all hear each other's stories, get outside of our own heads, and really grow a bond with each other, empathize with each other. This was huge. This is where that started. This is where, like, I'm in so much pain right now, but so are you. What's your story? What are you going through? What was that like for you? Wow, that sounds hard. This is what I'm going through. Yeah, so empathy definitely tied into how community really played a huge role in my recovery, in building my resilience, and coming back to being myself again, feeling like happy again. And of course, I would love for him to be here, but he was also going through a lot. He deserved to be here and to make as much of an impact as anyone here on this earth. And honestly, totally wish he could be here. And maybe instead of but, I should say and he's not here. And so one thing I can take away from all of it is that don't do drugs, first of all. Secondly, connect with the right people. Don't be friends with the wrong people. If you want to live a long, happy life, connect with the right people. 3, have a community, build empathy. 4, be a healthy person. That's kind of all it comes down to. Of course, there's plenty of more lessons that you can take away, things that you could say, lessons that you can take away from this. However, building empathy and having community were really the 2 biggest things that got me through the hardest time. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever been through, and that's not to say that I won't have more things, but it has strengthened my grief muscle for sure, because now I've had all 4 of my grandparents pass away, and I knew that at some point they would, right? Like, they lived a long, happy life, and I learned a lot from them while they were alive, and I am who I am because of them and their genetics, and I knew that at some point they'd be passing away, and so I just have mementos of them, so I think of them often. I blow them kisses up to heaven, they blow them back to me. I have these cute little things that help me stay rooted in who I am and who I want to be, and I hope that that helps anybody who's going through grief as well. Let me know down below. Peace out. See ya.